Good evening, everybody. We are excited here to start a new Masechta, Tractate Shekalim. The Torah tells us, "Kisises reish bnei Yisrael ifkodehem v'nasnu ish kefer nafshi laHashem b'fkeit esam v'layiyavhem negev b'fkeit esam." In Parshas Kisisa, the Torah tells us that each and every one of the Jewish people, the males, are required to give a half a shekel. And the rabbis understand this to mean that each and every year, all of the males need to give a half a shekel. And of these half shekalim, these were used, and we'll soon discuss more specifically the purposes of this, but these were used to purchase korbanos, sacrifices for the community. Every day there were a number of communal sacrifices, and so in order for everybody to have a share in those sacrifices, you pay this small tax of half a shekel, and now you have representation. You have taxation and representation in the communal sacrifices. And so all of the atonements that were brought about by these communal sacrifices, you have a part in them, because you're in the collective. Okay. Mishnah Aleph. Be'echad ba'adar, on the first day of the month of Adar, mashmiyan al ashkolim. The courts, the Jewish courts, would send out a proclamation in all of the provinces, and they would announce that everybody should give their half shekel. And at the same time, during the same proclamation, they would also announce to everybody that you need to go into your fields and into your gardens, and you need to see if there is any mixtures of plants growing together. And if there are, you need to clean them up. Now, what does this mean? So the Torah tells us of two different types of mixtures that are not allowed in fields. There's kilei zra'im. There's a mixture of seeds that refer to seeds that are vegetables and grains and fruits. You're not allowed to mix two different fruit seeds together, and you're not allowed to grow two of these things together. And if a non-Jew plants it in your field, or if the wind blew some seeds of a different mix, of a different type, into a field, let's say you're growing cucumbers and it sends something else, and now they're mixed in together and they're not delineated clearly, so you need to uproot them. However, if for whatever reason you didn't get to them and they fully mature, then you can eat them. This only is in Eretz Yisrael. Then there's something called Klei HaKerem, and this is another This is in Devarim. It's a separate rule, and that is your vineyards, you are not allowed to mix different species. And this is much more strict. First of all, the rabbis extended this to the diaspora. And also, if for whatever reason it was not uprooted, you cannot use it, you cannot have any benefit from it whatsoever. It's not only treif, it's aser b'hana, and it's much more strict. Now, in any case, on the 1st of Adar, when they sent out the proclamations reminding everybody to give their half shekels, at the same time, they let everybody know, they put everybody on notice, check out your fields, make sure there's no kilayim in your fields. On the 15th day of Adar, on the 15th day of Adar, in the walled cities, they would read the Megillah. This is known today as Shushan Purim. Places that have a wall from the days of Yeshua ben Nun until today's day and age, they don't read like the rest of us the Megillah on the 14th. They don't celebrate the full Purim on the 14th, but rather on the 15th day of Adar. Now, on the 15th day of Adar, this means that we're now a month away from Pesach.
It's only Yerushalayim though, right?
I'm sorry?
That's only in Yerushalayim.
Well, in Yerushalayim and other walled cities, places that were walled from the days of Yeshua ben Nun.
Anywhere in the world, even
No, only in Eretz Yisrael. The ones that were walled in Eretz Yisrael. Yes. So everybody, the rest of the world, like we, follows, conducts Purim on the 14th of Adar. But Shushan Purim is for places like Shushan, places like Yerushalayim, and so on and so forth. Now, on the 15th day, we're back to the 15th day. This means we're a month before Pesach. There was a mitzvah to be Oila Regel. Everybody needs to come 3 times a year for the festivals to Yerushalayim. But that's just the men. Women didn't necessarily have to come. However, on Pesach, men and women ate the Korban Pesach. Children ate the Korban Pesach. Lots of people ate the Korban Pesach. And so, of all the pilgrimages, Pesach was the largest. And being that it was the largest, so now is the time, it's a good time to prepare the roads and get the city all ready for this mass pilgrimage. So, on the 15th day of Adar, we're 30 days before, we begin to pave all the roads and fix all the roads, and the town squares. Town squares were used for gatherings, especially on fast days. They would gather in the town squares. So now it's the winter is over and construction season begins. And so public construction commences on the 15th of Adar. Now that the winter has passed, we have to take a good look at all the mikvahs that are used for ritual purity, especially ones in Yerushalayim. We're going to need lots of them for all of the pilgrims who are coming to the Beis HaMikdash and who are going to conduct the Korban Pesach. And all the needs of the public are now attended to as well. This refers to adjudicating capital, corporal, civil cases, attending to orchin, which means people who made certain types of vows that require valuations. So now everything's getting, now business season, so to speak, is back, and the winter is over, and we got to get busy with all of these court cases. Mutzayin and Sakfores. We also take the time to mark all of the graves. Those that faded, we mark them up again. Those that only had a temporary marker, we put on a more permanent marker. And back to the Kalayim discussion. And at that point, this is already 2 weeks after the first warning to clear out your field from Kalayim. The court now sends out messengers and agents and officers to go check to see if indeed people got rid of the Kalayim in their fields.
Oh, that's a big job.
Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Mishnah Beis, Rabbi Yehuda says, Barishayna, at the outset, in the beginning of this process, in the earlier days, when the officers of the court would come to a field and they would see Kilayim, these mixtures, so they would rip them out and they would throw them on the ground. When the evildoers increased, you see what happened was, a lot of people said, what do I have to go and bother myself to rip out all of the Kalayim? It was a lot of work.
And they're going to come anyway.
And they're going to come anyway. They weren't worried that they were committing an Avera by allowing this to stay. And so they said, somebody, let the agents do it.
Yeah.
So they just left it there. And what's more is they said, not only we'll rip it up, but let them take it, let them rip it up and throw it on the floor. And then what are we going to do? We'll have our animals eat it. So they were benefiting from it. So once again, when the evildoers increased, they ripped them out and they would throw them on the roads so that they would get trampled on and they wouldn't be able to be used for animal fodder.
Smart.
When that didn't work as a full deterrent, because again, the people said, well, why should I bother ripping it out myself? Hiskinu shiyu mafkirin kol hasadakula. So the court, which is authorized to make these types of bold declarations, they would declare all fields that had kalayim in it ownerless. And so all the even kosher produce that was growing there was free for all. And so this was a stern enough threat that people got busy and ripped out their kalayim. Okay. Mishnah Gimel. B'chamisha asar boi, on the 15th day of Adar. A lot of things are happening on the 15th day of Adar. Again, we're back in business. Shulchanes hayu yeshvim b'medina. Throughout the provinces in Eretz Yisrael, money changers would set up shop. Why would they set up shop? Because we mentioned earlier that we, at the beginning of the month of Adar, we had let everybody know to start saving up because you're going to have to pay your half shekel tax. So now, where is everybody going to get all these half shekels from? Imagine in today's day and age, 50-cent pieces. How many 50-cent pieces are there? If you have thousands and millions of Jews,
who collects those?
We're going to talk about who's going to collect it in a minute. So you have lots of people looking for these shekel pieces, these half shekel pieces, and so they would set money changers who would go and exchange the monies for people so that they would have these half shekels to donate. So that took place on the 15th of Adar. The Esrim v'Chamisha, on the 25th of Adar, 10 days later, Yoshvu b'Migdash. So then in Yerushalayim they would set up shop. And Mishiyashvu b'Migdash, once they set up shop in Yerushalayim, Hischilu l'mashkin. At this point, the court would take a tally of who was paid and who was not paid. And whoever has not paid, they would take collateral from them until they made sure, until they paid. So, Mr. Allen, if you had not paid, we'll take your glasses or something until you pay up. That's how it worked.
But the first of Adar is when they have to have the
first of Adar, they made the announcement. Get yourselves together.
Okay. All right.
Now, Esmi Mashkinin, who did they take collateral from and who did they not take collateral from? That's why I used you as an example. Leviim. From the Levites, they would take a mashkin if they had not yet paid. Alan, we're coming after you. Even though you're a Levi and you're a highborn status, nevertheless, we're still going to come after you for the mashkin. We're going to collateralize your possessions until you pay up. V'Yisraelim, and certainly for Israelites. Gerim, Vavodim, Shuchrorim, from converts, from freed slaves. Freed slaves, in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, a slave, when you purchased a slave, he had to toe the line, he had to become somewhat Jewish. If he was freed, he would become fully Jewish. A slave had certain mitzvahs that he had to perform, and one of them that he did not have to perform was the giving of the shekel, the half shekel. But if he was freed, then he's a full-force Jew. He's like a ger. He's like a convert.
You're talking about not an Eved Ivri.
Not an Eved Ivri. We're not talking about an Eved Ivri here. We're talking about an Eved Kanani, who was then freed, who now becomes Jewish. So in all of these people, they're all required to give the half shekel, and so therefore, if they don't, we take a collateral.
Yishmael too, or just Levium and the
Levium and Yisraelim. Now we're going to get to Kohanim in a moment. Avaloi noshim v'avodim uktanim, but we do not take collateral from women, from servants, unfreed servants, ktanim, from minors. In all of these cases, they don't have to give. And even if they once upon a time gave, because they decided to, on their free will, give, then we're still not. It was only a voluntary donation, and we don't take a collateral the following year. However, there's a little bit of a difference here. If they had given of their own, so that we don't take collateral from them. But if a father started giving the half shekel on behalf of his minor son, or on behalf of his wife or his servant, so shuveni poisek, so he can't stop the following years. And now there's a disagreement as to whether or not they would take collateral from him for those half shekels as well or not. But certainly from those people, those individuals themselves, we would never take a collateral from them because they're not obligated, even if they had given previously.
So those who were not obligated to give, they're covered by the karbanos anyway?
Yes. Yes, they are. V'ein mimashkinin es hakayhanim mipnei darchei sholem, but we do not take collateral from the Kohanim because of ways of peace. What does this mean? This means that Kohanim, they didn't get a portion in the land of Israel, and they worked for free, basically, in the Holy Temple, and they did a lot of work, and so it wasn't going to go over that well. And so just to keep the peace with the Kohanim, who were known to be hotheads, they would not take collateral from them.
But the Levium also didn't have a property.
The Levium had got the tithes. Levium had more.
The Kohanim got tithes as well, no?
Yeah, they got the tithes of the tithes.
A lesser amount.
Yeah, I mean there was trumas, meiser, there was things that they got, but not as much as the Levites. Plus, also the Levites were able to engage in commerce much more freely than the Kohanim were. In any case, the Kohanim of their highborn status, we didn't take collateral from them, lest they go on strike or something, and now we got problems in the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, now Rabbi Yehuda puts it this way. He says, Hayed ben Bukhri beyavna. Ben Bukhri testified in Yavna, and he said, Kol kohen sheshoikel eni chayta. Any kohen who gives the half shekel doesn't sin. Doesn't sin, doesn't commit a sin by giving it. Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai said, what are you talking about? You got this exactly opposite. Loichi. You got it all wrong. Ela kol kohen she'eni shekel chayta. Any kohen that does not give the half shekel, he's the sinner. We're not saying that if he gives it, he's not a sinner. If he doesn't give it, he is the sinner. Exactly the opposite.
We said he doesn't have to give.
We didn't say he doesn't have to give. We just said that we didn't take collateral. We didn't strong arm him. Elosha koyanim dershim mikras el atzmim. Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai explains that the Kohanim, you see, they played a little game here. They said they expounded the verses to work in their favor. What does this mean? The pasuk says, "Kol minchas kohen, kol el tia, lo yisayachel." When a kohen brings a korban mincha, when a kohen brings a flour offering, known as a meal offering, so unlike the meal offerings of others, where just a fistful goes onto the altar, when a kohen brings a meal offering, the entire offering goes onto the mizbeach, onto the altar. Now, they said, because the pasuk said kol minchas kohen kol tia, the entire thing, they said every, not just kol, but the entire thing, but every mincha offering of a kohen may not be eaten. Now, they argued as follows: there are many mincha, there are certain sacrifices that are brought from flour, the korban omer, as well as the shtei halechem on Shavuos, and the lechem aponim, the showbread, which was brought Fridays. All of these were eaten. So now they say, if we participate in this tax, so then we have a portion in all of these sacrifices. And we know that these sacrifices are eaten. So they say, but the Torah warns us elsewhere that every sacrifice of a kohen that's a meal offering cannot be eaten. Now again, they're misinterpreting the words according to Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai. It doesn't mean that every meal offering. It means that every meal offering that the kohen brings. They're twisting the words. They're saying, the pasuk says, Kol minchas kohen. Every mincha of a kohen, meaning to say that a kohen brings as an individual, has to be completely burnt on the mizbeach. Yeah. What they're saying is, they twist the words a bit and they say, every single kohen, every single mincha that a kohen has a part in, meaning to say even these public offerings that we know that are eaten, if a kohen had a part in it, they would not be able to be eaten. And so therefore they say that this precludes them from paying the tax. Again,
What's the logic?
the logic again. Let me explain. If we say that, what is the actual rule? Let's look. Let's reflect here for a moment. The Torah tells us that when a Kohen brings a personal carbon mincha offering, which is a flour offering,
Not a communal.
not a communal,
Not
a
a
personal
personal
one,
Not a carbon tumbling. All right.
personal carbon mincha. So we take the whole thing and we put it on the altar. We burn it on the altar, as opposed to everybody else. When they bring a personal offering, it's eaten. Right? So now, that verse is talking about personal sacrifices, personal offerings. However, if you want, you could try to, the way they read it differently. They said every flour offering, and because it works to their benefit, they said personal or communal that a Kohen brings may not be eaten. Now, if I'm going to join in with everybody else, so now I have a portion in it, which means it can't be eaten. Mm-hmm. But we know it is eaten.
So it's really okay. So if essentially if I give it, then the whole thing it has to be.
The whole thing has to be burnt.
So everyone's Shekalim. If Shekalim
are all wasted, all of these things. But again, we know these things are eaten. So which means what they're trying to say is that it's obvious that we're not allowed to give the shekel. Mm-hmm. And so this is according to Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai, and indeed this is the incorrect reading of the verse. This is talking about personal sacrifices, personal offerings. And so Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai is ruling that any Kohen that does not give the half shekel, he's the sinner. It's not that he doesn't sin if he contributes. He's a sinner if he doesn't contribute. He's supposed to contribute. Okay. Hey. Mishnah hey. Afal pisha amru ein memashkinin nashim v'avadim uktanim. Although we said before that we do not take collateral from them, from women, from servants or minors, im shaklu mekablam miyadam. If they show up and they give their half shekels, we can accept it from their hands. Now, what is the novel point here? The novel point here is that all of these people have access to money that is not theirs to use. Mm-hmm. Now, let's start with the simple one. Children could be taking money from their parents. And now they show up and they want to give money. How do we know that the money was taken appropriately? Servants, non-Jewish servants certainly have. They may have taken the money from their masters. They don't have any of their own money. Nashim, women, we could perhaps suspect, that they would be taking money from their husband without permission. Says the Mishnah here that we don't suspect them of taking money that was not theirs, and we allow them to bring, and we allowed them to donate the half shekel.
And this was for a karban chatas?
This was for all the karbonos, all the public sacrifices that went on throughout the year. There's lots of them.
Otherwise, it would be Genevas Das.
Not the Genevas Das, it would be Geneva.
Geneva, right.
Yeah. Ha'eved kechavim. What about a non-Jew? Literally a worshiper of stars, an idol worshiper. But any non-Jew. V'hakuti, or the Kuthians. The Kuthians converted to Judaism, and there's a dispute as to whether they were considered Jewish or not. Most said that their conversions were invalid and they were not accepted as Jews, and so therefore the author of this Mishnah obviously agrees with that position. So if they gave the half shekel, we do not accept it from their hand. And we do not accept from the Kuthians as well. We do not pairs of birds that come as a result of the purification process of a zava, which is a woman who menstruates outside of her normal cycle. The kine zavais, that's a zavin and zavais. Zav, first is the male one, where a male who discharges a discharge that similar to that which happens when one experiences prostatitis. The zavis, the female version of that, is a woman who menstruates outside of her normal cycle. That's a complicated discussion which is discussed elsewhere at length. We can't get into the details right now. Vikina Yoldes, and a woman who gives birth to a boy or a girl must bring a pair of birds. So in her purification process, v'chatois, v'ashomes, or sin offerings or guilt offerings, all of these types of offerings we do not accept from non-Jews, and we do not accept them from the Kuthians. However, avol nedorim unedoves mekablim yodam, but vow offerings and donations we do accept from them. Zaklal, this is the general rule. Kol shenidor v'nidov, anything that can be vowed or donated, mekablim yodam, we accept from non-Jews and Kuthians certainly. Kol she'ein nidor v'nidov, but that which does not come as a result of a vow or a donation, a free will donation, ein mekablim yodam, we do not accept from them. So things that are offerings that come as a result of some sort of guilt or necessity, we do not accept from them.
What's a vow?
A vow. A person says, a person swears that he's going to bring a carbon, whatever it is, mincha or a carbon. Any vow, he makes a vow.
Because during
he does it on his own volition.
Destruction of the base of Mikdash, what's his name? After he was chased out, he went to Rome.
Go one second. Let's finish the Mishnah here.
Yeah.
Now, v'cheinu mafresh al yidei Ezra. This had been made clear by Ezra. Shenemar, it says in Ezra, Lo lachem v'lanu livnei space bayis la'alekeinu. It's not for you and us to build the house of God. And what this means is that anything that is required giving is not accepted from non-Jews. Only the Jews can give the required offerings to the Beis HaMikdash. Now, Mishnah Vav, Ve'elu shechayovin bekalbon. Here it gets a little bit more fun. What is a kalbon? These are the people who must bring a kalbon. Now, what is a kalbon? A kalbon is a small amount of money, which will be discussed at a later point. Let's call it a nickel for now. So let's call it a 50-cent piece and a nickel. The 50-cent piece is the half shekel that you have to give. That's the tax. Now, because they're... Actually, let's start with the Rambam. There's two explanations as to what the kalban is about, why we bring the kalban. According to the Rambam says that because there were so many people who had to bring the half shekel, so it's a supply and demand issue. What happens when there's a huge demand? The price goes up. When there's there's a big demand for something, price goes up. So now, these half shekel pieces, because there's only a limited amount of them, and there's lots of people who need them, so the money changers would charge a little bit more. Let's say for a half shekel piece, they charge you 55 cents. Because there's more people who want because there's a lot of people who want them. So there's a supply and demand. There's not too many
half shekels around.
Now, a person... So now what happens is...
It's not fair.
It's not fair, according to... Well, that's the way it is. That's business, right? You try to check into a hotel and during busy time, it's more expensive. That's the way it is. So when you need a kalba, when you need a half shekel in the busy times, it's more expensive. That's the laws of business. Wow. So now, what happens if a person shows up and he has a whole shekel coin? It's called a sela. And he brings this for two people. So now he saved himself 2 nickels, right? He saved himself these nickels. So says the Rambam, everybody had to bring. Since Hegdish is always there, they always have the advantage in all situations. The treasury for the sanctuary always had the advantage in all situations because a half shekel is worth more. Now the actual half shekel, so they make you give the half shekel with the more. So according to the Rambam, if you showed up with a shekel for 2 people, you'd have to give 2 kolbons. You'd have to give 2 of them. Because if you came with a full one, we want to make sure the money that you would have saved, that you saved by not transferring it to in the money changer, you saved it, now you still got to pay it, because they always get the upper hand. Now,
So if you come with a
according to Rashi says that these half shekels were thin and they would rub out and they were missing some silver. And so in order to make sure that you fully gave your full amount, they required you to give the extra nickel to make sure that you gave your full amount. Now, there's a big dispute as to how, a 5-way dispute on what these kalbones were used for. These extra monies that were taken, what was it used for? Rabbi Meir is of the strictest opinion. He says that this was part of the actual half shekel donation, and so it was used for the sacrifices like the rest of it. Rabbi Elazar says that this was kept separate in a chest marked donation. Rabbi Shimon Shazurim says it was converted into gold. All these extra pieces were converted into gold, and it was used to plate the doors of the walls of the the Kodesh Kodashim, the Holy of Holies. Ben Azai says all these money changers that would change money for the Beis HaMikdash, they needed to get paid, and so these kolbones, these extra coins, were used to pay them. There's an anonymous Tana that says that they had to pay these coins, the half shekels, were collected throughout Eretz Yisrael. Agents would take the collections and bring them to Yerushalayim and bring them to the Beis HaMikdash. Those collectors needed to get paid, so those kalbones were used to pay them. Now, in any case, that's a lot of information about a kalbon. Now let's read the Mishnah. Now, who has to give this kalbon and who does not? Leviim v'Yisraelim. So, Leviim have to give it, Yisraelim have to give it, Gerim have to give it, converts, Avodim Meshuchrarim, freed slaves, which have the same status as converts pretty much. Avaloi Kohanim v'Noshim Avodim Muktanim. But not priests, not women, not servants, actual servants, and not minors. Why? Because the Kohanim, again, we don't want to get into politics with them, we want to anger them, they're working for free, we don't need any strikes, we don't need any problems. So out of reverence for their, I guess, temper, we would just leave them alone. The women and the servants and the children, they weren't responsible to give a half shekel altogether. So if they're giving it, it's a donation. So we don't give them this extra donation. We don't require them to give this extra donation. HaShekel Yedei Kohen. What happens if a Yisrael gives the half shekel for a Kohen? Al Yedei Isha, Al Yedei Eved, Al Yedei Kotan, Potter. Let's say a Jew gives it on behalf of one of the aforementioned people. So since if they brought it, they would not have to give this extra kalbon. So therefore, if you give it on their behalf, then you do not have to give the kalbon either. If a person gives a half shekel for himself and a half shekel for his friend, so then he only has to give one kalbon. Why? Because the truth of the matter is, if I don't, let's say I show up to the treasury, and I give it, but you didn't show up, and I'm giving it for you. If you don't show up, they may not get anything. If I don't give them on your behalf, they might not get anything. And so therefore, because I'm acting in the interests of the treasury, so we exempt me from giving an extra kalbon. Rabbi Meir, remember Rabbi Meir was the one who said that this is actually part and parcel of the actual shekel donation. So he says it doesn't matter that I'm giving it for you. It's part of the donation. And so therefore, if I'm giving it, I have to give 2 kalbons, one for myself and one for you, because it's part of the actual donation. If I give the treasury a full shekel and I ask for change, well, guess what? Now I have to pay 2 kalbons. one for the half shekel that I gave, and now for they're giving me back a half shekel, which is worth more than a half shekel. So I have to give that extra kalbon as well.
It's worth more than half a shekel?
The half shekels, again, because it's busy season,
Oh.
and because of the supply,
Right.
it reminds me a nickel ain't worth a dime anymore. A half shekel ain't worth a half shekel. It's actually the other way. It's worth more than a half shekel. The half shekel pieces, of course. Hashekel ayadei ani, a person who gives a half shekel for a poor person, al yadei shchenei, or on behalf of his neighbor, al yadei ben iroi, or on behalf of other people from his neighborhood, from his city. Potter, he does not have to give it. Again, this is the same thing that we were talking about before, because if he doesn't pay it, guess what? They're not. The treasury isn't going to get anything. So we don't make him give that extra kalbon. But if he loaned it to them and he expects payment from them, so then he will have to pay the half shekel. He will have to pay the kalbon. I'm sorry. Now, ha'achim ha'shutafim shechayovon bekalbon peturim mimaiser behema. Brothers that are partners, business partners, brothers who are partners. Well, I'll explain what this means. That have to give the kalbon, they're patur from maiser behema. Brothers who their father died, and now they inherited his property. So now, if they have not yet divided the assets, so they're considered partners in their father's assets. And now, if they have to give a kalbon, that means that they've already divided the assets. Because if I'm giving on behalf of you, we already exempted me from giving the kalbon. But the fact that we're saying that I have to give so now, in this particular case, brothers that have to give the kalbon, this means they already divided the assets. So they are
divided the assets.
So now, if they replace their assets together and went in business together again, so they divided the assets, the father left $100, and now they split it 50-50, and now they put it back together in one pot. So now they're partners, and partners do not have to give tithes of animals. So if you and I go into business and we own animals together, we do not have to give tithes. So brothers, the question is brothers, are they considered partners or not? So again, if they've divided the assets, so then they're separate, and now if they're separate people, the assets are separate. If they now put them back together, they're considered like partners just like anybody else. And so they would not be required to give meiser tithes on behemoths, on their animals.
Even though
to begin with, they were considered divided. One, now they're divided, and they're back together, they're considered partners, business partners. So, again, if they're considered partners, really partners, because now they've divided and put it back together, so then they don't have to give tithes of their animals. But the kalbon they would have to give, because I'm giving it on behalf of you. We're not, our assets are not actually merged. We're like business partners. It's not one asset, it's two assets that have been merged together.
Yep.
Now, let's just finish up
so
here.
They have to give one korban.
They have to give, again, if they just inherited the money and they haven't divided it, then they have to give a kalbon. If they have divided it and one is giving for the other one, then they don't have to give the kalbon, because it's giving for somebody else. Now, the kamahu a kalbon. How much is a kalbon? How much money is this? How much money are we talking about? Mo kesef, essentially a nickel. Divri Rabbi Meir. And the Chachamim say, and this is the actual rule, 2.5 cents, or a half of a ma'ah. Now, exactly how much all of this silver was worth is a subject for a later discussion. Please join us next week. Once again, today's share is dedicated in loving memory of my dear mother, Rivka Bas Harav Reb Shloimeh. Next week we'll be on with Mishnah Perek Beis.